Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Jerusalem to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. We're in beautiful Yerushalayim. I'm here with Rabbi Mike Feuer. Rabbi Mike, shalom.
Oh, shalom, Yishai. It's good to see you.
Great to see you. Great to hear you on the show. And we are at the Pardes Institute, which is a really fun locale here in Jerusalem. Lots of Torah learning and lots of different energies kind of coming together and colliding here, including I see that you have a speaker series here at Pardes, including somebody that I'm a fan of coming up soon, which is Jonathan Rosner. I don't always like his opinions, but I like his writing. And I think
you mean Shmoll.
Schmoll Rosner.
Jonathan Rosner, I'm also a fan of. He's a good friend of mine.
That's right. He's the matzah man. He's amongst many other things.
He is amongst many other things.
Many other things.
Who is also a big fan of, but for different reasons.
Great guy, smart guy. But Schmoll Rosner is coming to speak here. He speaks a lot about Jewish peoplehood. And that was an announcement that was announced today that the Trump administration is signing into law, basically a recognition of Jews not as a religion but as a people, as an ethnicity, ethnicity, peoplehood, nationality. What the difference between these words are is I'm sure you can use a good explanation.
PhDs.
Right, but. The bottom line is the idea behind this law is to be able to defend Jews as being victims of a racial crime, as an anti-Semitism is not just your opinion about a religion, but rather you're attacking a peoplehood.
Correct.
And therefore you are doing a kind of a racial crime, a hate crime. Yeah, you have to say that.
No, I just think it's really funny that with real respect to President Trump and his consistent support of the national sort of posture of our people, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, signing into law this notion of the Jews as a nationality. It's just ironic that these are things which are just obviously true, and it takes someone who is seen as a rogue president to put them into effect.
Yeah,
there's something like world upside down in the whole equation, and I find it particularly sad that so many of our more liberal brothers and sisters, because of the visceral antagonism they feel toward the president, are unable to see ultimately that the instinct for what he's doing is to protect and support.
Well, the way that they see it, interestingly enough, is exactly the opposite.
Yes.
Specifically with this particular one, because they want to see themselves as normative Americans in America.
Yes, of a Jewish persuasion.
Of a Jewish persuasion, i.e. not a peoplehood. Correct. But a value system, whatever it is.
And this, by the way, goes to the ultimate dividing point between American and Israeli Jewry.
Just to make that, right, but just to make the point at the end, which is, are you calling us out? Are you saying that we're not American? Are you saying that we're not a regular group of peoples here? Are you basically corralling us? Are you basically hurting us? Are you
handing us over to the white supremacists on a silver platter?
Right. You are basically saying ghettoize us because we're a different breed.
Right.
And now send us to the slaughterhouse. Right.
Yes,
send
us
us to
the
gas
language
chambers.
I've heard from actually some of my students this morning.
Right.
It was a really funny moment. Some student made a comment about it, and I responded. And I heard somebody chime in from the coffee. Oh, heard my first Nazi reference of the morning. it was a great moment. Meaning that the hysteria which this provokes, in my opinion, has far less to do with the very real danger that the yahoos of the white supremacist movement pose. I don't mean to downplay that danger, but it actually has less to do with that. It has much more to do with the identity battle, which has always been there and has erupted between Jews as a people and Jews as a religion, as embodied in the ethnic state of Israel and those who sort of see themselves, define themselves through it, even if they're in America, and this very convenient cosmopolitan international Jew, sorry to borrow some language there, who is a citizen of where they are, who has a belief system which is sort of eminently transportable. That's what lies at the root of the division between American and Israeli Jewry. And, like in any divorce, the property is always the point of contention, and the ultimate property we're fighting about is authentic Jewish identity. And identity is a life or death battle. I mean, it's getting messy out there.
Yeah.
And Trump is a lightning rod because he just embodies the ethnic nationalist Jewish side says, well, I like the guy, I don't like the guy, as we've spoken about, but I personally, who don't like the guy so much, find it very hard to deny the great acts he's done for us as a people. and I don't find it hard to. I have no interest in denying it. It's just real in my eyes, right? But he's so easy to hate that the people who aren't interested in seeing that just see him as the embodiment of. Literally, I heard my student said to me this morning that this is like the first step, just like when Hitler, like, weeded us out into a separate nationality. I was like, what planet are you on? Hitler was not trying to protect the Jewish students on the campuses of Berlin. Like, a little bit of context.
And just to give a little contra to how you presented it, which is, here's a guy like me who finds Trump to be a breath of fresh air in general. Even all the stuff that people don't like him, I specifically find those things to be a breath of fresh air.
Sure, we've spoken about
it. I like his manner. I find it refreshing. That's the word I would use, refreshing. And recently, I posted a video of him speaking at the IAC,
which got such flack. That whole thing.
Well, it got flack because of spin, right? But because if you watch the speech, it was a marvelous, unbelievable speech, and I actually heard from friends who were there, and my friend Jake was there, and my friend Joseph Bog was there, and my friend Alex was there, and Shmoll Rosner was there. A lot of people were there.
Sure.
And people were like, this was an incredible speech. But the best scene in that speech that I saw was a clip in which he says, I was about to sign this recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, moving the embassy, and all these kings and queens and presidents called me, and I just was like, I can't answer the phone. He says, I can't answer the phone right now. And then I made the decision, and I announced it at the White House, and then I called back all these kings and queens and presidents, and I was like, oh, sorry I couldn't get back to you. And he's making fun of them. He goes, I'm sorry I couldn't get back to you earlier. What you want to, what? He goes, what's up, king? Because what's up? So he's like, oh,
now I have to watch it.
Yeah, you
I
got to see
avoided watching it because I'm so not interested in all the spin around him. Like
that's why you got to see it for yourself.
It's worth seeing it for that alone.
He goes, what's up? And he goes, I don't like the way what you just did with the Jerusalem thing. He's like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't call you earlier. Sorry about that. And he's making fun of these literally kings and queens and presidents of this world. And he's like, I had 40 of these calls. And he's basically saying, like, just like you said, like, it takes a rogue president, or the emperor has no clothes. The other way, it's like the emperor says, you guys have no clothes.
Yeah, no, that is for sure what he embodies.
And so, I'm amazed by this thing. And that's the Trump side of things. At the same very moment, there's some kind of killing, something's happening. By the time you guys hear the show, more information will be clear about it, but there was some kind of event in New Jersey, a shooting event.
Kosher market in New Jersey, yeah.
Right, and some amount of people have been murdered. Is it 1? Is it 6?
Why? How?
Who? What's the deal? Unclear. And so
remembering that there's been a wave of interpersonal violence, specifically against Hasidic and ultra-Orthodox Jews in the New York, New Jersey area.
Right.
So it's like a question here, is this the next phase of that process?
So there's this uptick in anti-Semitism.
Of violent anti-Semitism,
specifically. Like real violent anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, in England, they're heading towards a third election in 4 years, or a fourth election.
Let's not throw stones.
Right. And here we are hours away from the final decision. And by the time you hear this, you'll know for sure. But it looks pretty certain.
I can't imagine they'll pull it out.
No, it looks pretty certain that we're going to a yet third election within a year. And they
promise the whole voting populace.
Well, I think maybe the temple will be built through this third election. Who knows?
Or they're going to hand out magnums at the polling stations.
Magnum is not a gun.
No, sorry, right. Don't misunderstand me. It's an ice cream bar, which is a particularly decadent.
There's a phrase here in Israel: third time you get ice cream. It's just a common phrase. Okay. Here, I want to tell you a little story that happened to me this morning. 7:50, 7:55, I get in my car every day with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. I drop them off. I do the rounds. And I love it. You know what I mean? I love it. I get them in the car, the whole spiel. I'm always hopeful. We are all, the four of us are always, the four of us means the 3 kids and myself, are always hopeful that there's going to be good music on the radio when we're going to school. First choice is always Kan Moreshet, which is the religious radio station, and hopefully there's a rocking Jewish / Hasidic tune, whatever, to start our day in a Jewish way.
A little bit of high-pitched Ashkenazis,
Something like that. It could be whatever it is. It could be Sephardic. This doesn't matter. There's a lot of good songs. Yismach Chatani. Okay, whatever it is, there's a lot of good songs out there. Today, we got out a little bit late, so it was like It was 7:59, and then at 8 here, famously in Israel, it goes beep beep beep, and it's the news.
Yep.
And we listen to the news. The kids are interested in the news. I like to listen to the news. So the news starts, and here's how it goes. It starts off like this. It's like Avigdor Lieberman, the head of the Russian party, Yisrael Beitenu, wrote. This is the first news story. Wrote last night on his Facebook page against This is the first news piece against Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying. And then they went on for a minute of delineating the
Facebook post,
the dreck that was written by the dirt slinging that was written by one former minister, Knesset member, onto the prime minister, and they're talking about. I'm like, I can't believe this. Now I'm trying to raise my kids with a positive sense about our state of Israel. My daughter pipes in immediately. She goes, "Isn't Prime Minister Netanyahu, hasn't he done good things?" Blah blah blah. Immediately, my finger automatically just like a missile jabbed at the radio.
Give me the 70s.
Right, and I hit radio 88 FM, which is always like music, a lot of Israeli music, but a lot of Western music. You know what song they had on? It's the song called "Breakfast at Tiffany's."
Sure,
okay?
I know it.
Right, so they had that was what was on, and I sang it to my kids in the car. And we had fun, and then the radio show hostess gets on and she goes, "What's the song really about? It's really about finding common ground, right? It's that's what she said. She goes, it's really about finding common ground today. It's about, okay, we don't get along, but at least we like breakfast and Tiffany's. Okay, that's one thing we got.
Always have
right?
that right."
And I was like,
that's so much better than
that
yours.
I was like, yes, that was a happy tune. And good on that we started our day in a happy way. I don't want to poison my little kids' minds in the morning with total junk.
No.
Okay. Second thing, thank you for playing that song. But third thing, great commentary by the show hostess, the radio hostess, like the broadcaster, that and I just and I tweeted it out. I was like, that was a beautiful thought by Radio 88. Like, we have a good country. Things are moving nicely, Like,
tell you a story about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a listener visit me recently. He's a cyclist. Did a bunch of riding in Europe. Was here in Israel, and one of the things he said that is, as he was riding around Europe, Eastern Europe in particular, he felt like that life had just ebbed away from so many of the places he was visiting. It was like old people running the stores. The young people were trying to move out and get somewhere else.
Yep.
And then he said he came to Israel.
I've seen that myself in Ukraine, different places. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say his politics are complex. He's not like a rah-rah. Some people get here starry-eyed and they only see the good. God bless them. But he said the thing he's like, just life. Cranes and people pushing double baby carriage strollers and just like life. And with all the messy complexity that our society has, we can't miss that.
Right.
Thriving existence.
Right.
And okay, so it might need some guidance and clarification, but
and joy. There's a joy within that.
But life is joy. You can't have
I
life like that without joy.
I agree with you. I agree totally with you. But it sometimes needs to be highlighted or said or seen. Like because sometimes people don't say it. For example, yesterday I got a pet peeve in this world, and that's German press. Okay, I have to deal with them a lot. I have found them to be, over the years, generally, not specifically, meaning to say not all, but generally speaking, how should I say this the most correct and polite way? They're the disciples of the Third Reich today. Okay,
that's the most polite way you can say it.
They are today's. Why
don't you just call them mini Goebbels? That'll be the title of the show.
Yeah, they're really no. Actually, I have a different title for the show.
Already?
The title.
We haven't even talked about the Parsha.
Yeah, and the title of the show is going to be, and I'll tell you right now, it's going to be Yaakov versus Yisrael. or Yisrael versus Yaakov.
Oh, I just framed our entire conversation.
That's right. I'm always thinking about the framing. Any case, this lady I brought. She was in Frat yesterday. This German reporter. So I go look, and there's life. There's cafes.
Yeah,
there's life.
booming.
Buzzing. I go, what does this look like to you? She's like a settlement. I'm like,
you can't actually see it.
Yeah. Right. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. She literally caught me off guard because I thought that some side would be like, well, yeah, you know what I mean? There's kids, there's this, that. Yeah. No, she's like a settlement. I'm like, okay. Like she sees it within her frame. All right.
I want to be said. She doesn't see it.
Yeah.
She has an image which she's so committed to that she cannot see it, because to see it would be to actually question the whole intellectual, political, cultural construct that makes her who she is. It's very important to note that.
Right, you're right.
And that's what explains so much of the blindness in the world, which we're all, by the way, subject to in our own ways.
Sure.
But that type of answer to me, it's like, okay, we're done with our conversation because we're not actually talking to each other.
Can I say something like graphic for a second?
In what direction?
You're in Buchenwald or in Auschwitz, and you're an inmate, and you're a Rabbi Mike Feuer, smart person, thoughtful person, got a lot of stuff going on in the old head there about a lot of good things with a lot of good visions and ideas. But
having a bad historical stretch.
But the captor who's capturing you within this thing, he's looking at you. And he's looking at you with these eyes like you're not even an animal. You're subhuman. You're not. Yeah. You're like a malformed. You're like something.
Louse.
Yeah. And he's just looking at you like that, and you're looking back at him, looking at you like that, and you're like, "How could you possibly see me this way? And don't you actually know that you have turned yourself into this thing that you're visioning me, and you've become subhuman?" Like that image of being behind an electrified ghetto. Like I just saw a picture of Himmler walking around looking at the people in the camps.
Right.
And I thought to myself, what if I was one of those Jews
looking at
Himmler, looking at me, and I'm thinking, what are you? That is what I felt with and I feel oftentimes with this German press.
So this is a very serious problem that we face as a people, because I call it the Jews, we were the original ghetto superstars. Yeah. I mean, think about it. You're walking around 16th century Poland. We don't even go all the way to Auschwitz. You're walking around 16th century. The Poles are spitting at you, right? And you're oppressed. Inside, you're totally alive. I can take the Gemara. I can turn it in knots. I can flip it upside down. Is that like a guy? You know. So that part of that is a very natural psychological response to oppression, is that you reduce the oppressor to what you wish he could be. The question is, when you gain your freedom, how do you not make the same mistake that he made? Right? How do you not take that frame of survival that when you look at this Nazi and you realize that he's made himself into a subhuman by doing this to me? How do you truly liberate yourself and say that whole frame of reference to other human beings was essentially the problem, right?
I know. I bring the German press to Efrat. And to have a nice conversation.
Yeah, but I just noticed by the way, I just point out to your language is that they're the disciples of the Third Reich.
Not because I want them to be that. Every time, listen to me. I'm going to defend myself. Every single time I meet the press, doesn't matter who. And by the way, this is the same way I approach Arabs or I approach Germans or I approach anybody. I don't put my big stereotype that I've already built up in my head. I really don't. And that's what I said. I actually have German press who are not like that. But the experience is a recurring experience. Yes. After a while, you build a mechanism to understand who you're dealing with.
But listen, first of all, you are, I hope you know, an exceptional person in this respect. And I'm concerned as an educator. I think about this all the time because I see the signs of it in many of our, both I see it in the left and in the right. Like it's so hard to attain a real sense of identity and liberation.
Just to remind you, why she was speaking to me yesterday was because they were flabbergasted at the fact that Jews are going to build a building in Hebron.
Right.
The backstory
in a marketplace that our people have owned for a couple hundred years.
I use the word registered as owners, meaning to say it was part of the Jewish ghetto forever and ever.
Right.
But we have it on paper for the last 200 years from 1807.
Which is as old as any paper of property ownership probably gets in this region.
Right, and we're building a house there.
Ooh, careful.
And I reminded her that the Palestinian Authority themselves signed an internationally recognized accord that Jews would live in Hebron. So what's the biggie? I'm telling you, she gave me Himmler eyes. I'm sorry, she gave me Himmler eyes. That's what I saw.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. My point is that if what we really want to do is wipe that look off the face forever,
Yeah.
we have to think very carefully about how to do it. Because my instinct, I'm telling you, personally, my instinct
Okay.
in that sense is like, okay, you freaking Nazi. Like,
But I didn't say anything like that.
Of course not.
I was really nice to her.
But I'm sure you were. But I'm now talking about myself,
Yeah.
which is that my instinct is like that. Well, yeah, I would wipe you out if I could. Because why wouldn't I do that? Because better to wipe you out first than you wipe me, and be that in a media battle, be it in a real battle, and there's a question there of how to really liberate ourselves.
Okay, so I'll tell you what my instinct is when I deal with these people is.
Yeah.
I'll give you your 5-minute interview. Our good friend Zev once told me a piece of information. He said to me, a piece of advice. He said to me, dealing with the press is like being in a casino. The longer you're with them,
The worse the odds.
the worse the odds, the more money you're going to lose. So I give them their thing. I tell them very calmly, and my whole internal answer is, build, baby, build. Just build. Like the way we're going to beat these guys is just by showing them we're back, we're here, God is with us, the Arabs accept us, et cetera, et cetera. Like not by like convincing them. I'm not out to convince them, and I'm not trying to convince them.
So that's an important answer. It's an internally referential answer, meaning like I'm to the extent that I feel that you are truly the enemy and you're representative of something which has caused me so much pain, I'm going to disconnect from you, and I'm going to expand myself. I hear that. That's actually very helpful.
That's how I think about it. That's what I tell them, and they're always shocked at me. And the first question was, "Is it really going to get built?" That's what she said to me. I go, "We're in the business of building." That was my answer. I said to her, "Definitely, we're in the business of building." That's it. And of course I said to her, as I always say, and there are many Arabs who are happy about this, the Arabs who are not subjugated. By the way, just yesterday I sat with an important Arab friend of mine. He says to me, there was an Arab closure of stores in protest,
strike. Yeah,
a strike. He told me, do you know how that works? Fatah goes to all these stores and they shut them down forcibly.
Yeah, it's a protection racket.
Right.
It's a political protection racket.
Right. It's like, but like he told me, that's what happened on this thing. And all the human rights workers make it the Issa Amrus of this world make it look like all the Arabs are together in the strike against Israel. They're being forced to close their stores, and I wish some of the folks here would see that.
Well, and they learned that tactic from the Soviet world. There's an enforced ideological allegiance is like a very old tactic there.
Let's put it this way: the folks that come from the Russian background really recognize a lot of what's going on. In any case. Let's get to the Torah portion,
Please.
And I want to just tiny preface. I oftentimes before I meet you here, I listen to the Parsha on YouTube, read in my favorite trope,
Right.
as opposed to trope.
Cantillation.
Cantillation, and my favorite is either it's Yerushalmi. It's usually called Yerushalmi or Moroccan Yerushalmi, which is I just love it. I just love it. I love when I hear it. It's just the best. And it's different. It's very different than the Ashkenazi one, but it's great. And I always listen to it. Today, I'm driving here from the Gush, from Gush Etzion, from Judea, and exactly as I'm passing by Bethlehem to my Rachel, it was exactly where Rachel passes away.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, and I shed a tear. And because she passes away in this week's Torah portion. Actually, 2 of Yaakov's beloved women pass away in this Torah portion. One is hidden and only hinted to. That's his mother, Rebecca. And Rachel, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, the way I'd like to frame today is the battle between Yaakov and Yisrael. Actually, Yaakov Yisrael, and the story of the Torah portion is Vayishlach, chapters 32, book of Genesis, Bereshit, and it starts, thanks to the Bishop of Canterbury, at verse 4. Okay, Vayishlach.
No.
And,
I mean,
verse 4.
yes, the fact that it's verse 4 is thanks to the Bishop of Canterbury. It starts at Vayishlach.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to our sages.
I meant
he didn't bring up the parsha. Yes, I just want to be clear on that.
Right. Good
the fact
clarification.
That it's line 4.
Right, line 4, right, which is instead of line 1 or something. But in any case, forget all that. Bottom line is Pashat Vayishlach. And the most important thing is that we're talking about Jacob coming back to the land of Israel. He has now run away from Lavan House, the White House. I thought about that the other day. Anyway, don't get into that.
I can't believe you ever thought about that.
Yeah,
All right, move on. No,
Lavan's house. He ran away from Lavan's house, and finally he is coming to the land of Israel. That's right. He ran away from Whitey. That's right. And he's coming to the land of Israel, and he's going to go in the normal route, which is move south from Turkey, and then and on next to the Jordan River, and swing from that. If you're facing south, you're going to swing a right into Vadi Tirza and come up to Shechem. That is the normal way of entering the land of Israel from the north. In any case, on the way down, he is going to be facing his brother His brother is going to be walking towards him, Esav, with 400 men.
Big hairy men.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Big hairy men. Now, I heard Rabbi Etshalom say that maybe Yaakov is overreacting. But it says
it's projection.
It's projection because he remembers what he did to his brother. Mm-hmm. Is his brother holding a grudge?
If I were Esav,
I'd be holding
Yaakov,
a grudge, right?
I would be pretty pissed right now,
right? Because
these 400 guys would be coming to take it out on me,
right? So he sends messengers to his brother. So he's being very smart. There's a lot of diplomacy here. There's a lot of shuttle diplomacy. He's going to send first these messengers, and he says to his brother through a messenger, "Im Lavan Garti v'cheradata." I lived with Lavan, our joint uncle, and I've delayed till now. Famously, Garti also stands for Taryag, which is I've kept the 613 mitzvot. Taryag is a numerical value of 613. Same letters also. That's right. It's
an anagram.
And I have to very quickly, just in parentheses, I'll never forget Rabbi Judah Michel told us a story that there was once a chassid who was living in Siberia, and he managed to eat only kosher meat and go into the mikvah and put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin and keep all the Torah mitzvahs. People are like, how did you possibly do it? Parentheses within the parentheses. In popular culture of drinking, white represents vodka and yellow represents whiskey. So anyway, he goes. So they asked him, "How are you, chassid, able to do everything?" So he slaps a bottle of vodka on the table and he goes, "Im lavan garti v'taryag mitzvot shamarti." Okay, I drank vodka and I was able to stay a strong, good Jew. Okay, in any case, so he sends.
I bet that sounds better in Russian.
Yeah, so maybe. So he sends these messages, and guess what? These messengers come back saying, "We came to your brother, and he's coming towards you with 400 men." Now, there's no additional piece of information here.
Correct. Deliberately so.
Right. I would be like, and he says hi. He says, "Can't wait to see you soon."
Oh, great.
No, he's coming towards you with 400 men with him. So, what do you make of that?
I mean, what I make of it has a lot to do with the way in which the Torah presents it. Is that and Rav Etshalom mentioned before is echoing a question which comes all the way back through the classic sources to the Midrash. It's when it says V'yira Yaakov me'od v'yitzelo, right, that Yaakov was afraid and it really troubled him, or he was really afraid and it troubled him.
Right.
The double language there shows us his internal dilemma. On one hand, he's afraid lest he let down his guard and Esav would just come pouring in with 400 men and it's slaughter.
Pulverize him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, 11 children, 4 wives, much cattle, right? This could really be a disaster, right? On the other hand, the Yetzirlo, that he's concerned, and if you look in the Or Chaim HaKodesh, there's a beautiful explication of this. He's concerned knowing that, but if he takes a posture of defensiveness, that's what you evoke in others. Mm-hmm. So he's caught. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know exactly what to do. And this is a dilemma which follows us down to this very day. Right? Here.
That's interesting that you're talking vis-a-vis the Trump thing. There's two postures right now. Either posture of defensive,ness or a posture of...
toward everyone. It's also toward the Arabs.
Yep. Yes.
It's also toward our fellow Jews and... if I'm religious, toward the secular, if I'm secular, toward the religious. And by the way, it's because it's reflective of a basic human dilemma, which is that do I take a risk or do I rely on
precedent?
Or precedent or whatever image internal and take a defensive posture.
Right.
And the reality is it's extremely difficult to know. Because the defensive posture oftentimes evokes the world in which we live in the same way, by the way, that the risk-taking posture of trusting the world can evoke the same. It's just there is no answer to this, and it goes straight.
Well, one of the ways you get an answer is through intelligence. Right?
You can try.
I'm saying intelligence is a system by which it's like I extend my senses, my ability to tell things by sending out or gathering some kind of information. I'm just saying from a
strategic, tactical. But what's the problem with intelligence is that raw intelligence has to be analyzed, and the frame of analysis presents the same.
Very good.
Problem. I mean, you are correct.
Right.
And you're always served by knowledge and information.
I'm just saying he sends out these
exactly
messages,
what he does.
and they come back blank. You don't
because he gets raw intelligence.
Right.
Esav, that's a factoid. Esav is coming with 400 men.
Right.
Now what?
But they obviously could not gather enough.
Okay, but
give him,
say the answer was Esav's coming with 400 men. He said, "Oh, I can't wait to see him."
Right, or he looks smiley.
Or no, I can't wait to see him
dead.
Right, he can't wait to see me because good, he's found me. He's got his 400 men, or he can't wait to see me as an honor guard.
Right.
You see that this is the problem of life in general, and it goes, as we'll follow later, to the struggle he's about to have.
Great explication there. And
fun word, isn't it?
Yeah. And all right, so Yaakov goes. He chooses famously. He chooses 3 paths. One path is the defensive or preparational. What's it called? What do they call these folks that like dig all kinds of stuff under their house in America?
The preppers.
Preppers, right? He goes prepper mode, right?
Which my brother, by the way.
I have a friend who's a prepper. My good friend
he's not
Josh.
Full on, but he's got like a silver stash and a what do they call the bag that you have when you have to leave really quickly?
Oh, go bag?
Something like that. There's a word for it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Some people have a Mashiach bag, you know. This.
Some of us live close enough just to walk to Jerusalem.
Can I tell you something? Sometimes there's these moments in life. I was translating for Rabbi Rina Schnerb, the girl who got killed murdered a few months ago by a bomb that went off at some well that they went to. Her father was speaking. Holy foley! So what? One of the things he said is that Rina always carried a white shirt with her wherever she went, like in her backpack. And her girlfriends were like, "Why are you carrying a white shirt?" She's like, "If Mashiach comes, I want to be ready to just go right down." She was at the Rova, the girls' seminary inside the old city. And she's like, "I want to be able to greet Mashiach at the temple." She always carried a white shirt. Like it was a real thing for her.
Whoa!
I tell you. So he goes bunker style defensive, splits up the camp. Dina. This is the Medrash says he'll put her in a locked box so that evil man won't set his eyes on him. And as Judaism goes, the rabbis are like, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's not going to play out well before the end of the parsha. We'll get there.
So fine. And then he splits up the camp, puts him, and so that's one, the dividing of the camp. 2, he prepares the big part. I think this whole thing is the gifts.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. And then the Torah is going to spend a lot of time telling you
the
details of the gifts. Rashi goes into it and explains to you how exactly he knew how many males you need via females for different animals for them to be fruitful. And that, what is that? Like, that's there to tell you, we know Yaakov is into animal husbandry and he's an expert at it, but like he's given a very, how should I say, fruitful present.
Yeah. Part of the way I often, if not always, respond to these like strange, enormous detail, and it's important to just remember the context that the Torah doesn't waste words.
Right.
So therefore, it's always a question when you get this type of detail.
Right.
Is I think that we often forget the fact that the Torah was given to be read out loud and to excite the listener to the point where they can identify with what's happening. And to a pastoral people to whom the Torah was given, this is really exciting stuff. Right. That's like details. If I started saying to you, he sent him, this many cars and there were like boxes of this and bags of that and like stuff that comes from our culture, like, whoa, dude.
He sent him an Amazon.
He sent him
a gift card.
He sent him 5 iPhone 10s. Yeah. Like, what?
That's a good point. Right.
You have to picture that.
Yeah, and people are like, look at that, Yaakov. Boy, he's smart. Look at that.
He knew exactly what he would
want. Look at that. It's exactly how I would do it.
Right, because remember, this part is the sort of bridge between the defensive and the open posture, which is like, he assumes that Esav actually is probably hurting still from their last interaction, but he's open to letting it go. And so a gift well given opens many doors. So he wants to be he's not just throwing possessions at him in hopes to buy him off. He's trying to change his heart. Right. So each of these gifts, I imagine we could go through and see
and there's even
what
a verse.
It was.
Right. There's even a specific verse that he says, very beautiful verse, and obviously an alliterative verse, because it says Vamartem, and you should. He tells his servants. This is verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he tells his servants that are going to meet Esav. He says Vamartem, and you say to him, Gam hine avdecha Yaakov acharenu. Your servant Yaakov, your servant Esav, your servant Jacob is behind us. Ki amar, for he said, Achapra panav bemincha haholechet lefanai. Maybe I could appease his face with a gift that is going before me. V'acharei chen ereh panav, and afterwards I shall see his face. Ulai yisa panai. Maybe he'll accept my face.
Right. And the beauty there is that, appease is an interesting translation because kapara, achparana, or achpra panav, is a strange thing. Appease his face. What does that mean? So Rashi points out, well, kapara actually means, we usually translate it as atonement, which is also a word that needs to be explained. But Rashi says very specifically, what's kapara? Kapara is removing something that's covering something else.
Right, like the kaporet.
Like the kaporet, or like we call the bowls that are used in the temple service kaparot, because the Kohen scrapes his finger off each time he sprinkles blood because it needs to be fresh from the bowl. So what's happening here? There's something between Yaakov's face and Esav's face.
Right.
Because Yaakov did wrong by Esav. Let's face it. Even though he did wrong for the right reasons. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Right? So he knows, in order to get really at Esav's face, at his brother's face, that he has to remove the thing that he's done that stands between them. And a lot of it just has to do with who gets the goods.
Right.
And what Yaakov is trying to show him is, listen, I will give you everything.
Right.
In order to be your brother again.
Right.
And then I'll see your face.
To be your brother again, but also for a limited time, meaning to say, let's have that good interaction, but I don't want to stick around with you.
That's fine. But then when we part, we'll part as brothers.
Right.
That's for sure true.
And we will get together again to
ultimately,
bury... first to bury our joint father.
Right. And then ultimately, the redemption, Alu Moshe B'Har Tzion, that the reconciliation between Yaakov and Esav is part of the messianic reconciliation. Mm-hmm. But it's on the premise that he's able to repair and that they part as brothers.
Right. Okay, but before we actually get to that brotherly reparation, repairment...
there's a word there.
Whatever, the
rectification.
The rectification. Before we get to that, there's going to be the night scene.
Dun, 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 dun.
The night scene. The night scene is very famous. And here Jacob is going to get his initial name of Israel. It's very famous. There's a struggle at night, and Jacob acts like a ferryman. He's bridging across the river. All the stuff, they're crossing the river. He bridges it, and then somehow he finds himself on one side of the river alone. So all of his stuff, all of his servants, all the wives, all the kids, all the stuff got moved over, and then it says. In the very famous words, Vayivater Yaakov levado, Yaakov remained by himself, V'yavek ish imo, and a man, struggled with him, adalot shachar, right?
Till the dawn.
Till the dawn. And this is a song also, Vayivater Yaakov levado.
By the way, I think I've said it before, as far as I know, and I've asked some real authorities, it's the only nigun that Reb Shlomo wrote to a verse in the Torah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which deserves some reflection.
Okay. I got to check that. That's interesting. Okay, that's a Shlomo Katz question. All right.
Yes. I'm curious what he says, because the person who said it to me said it on good authority.
That's serious business. I know he told you. I know. I'm guessing I know. Any case,
ask Shlomo, will you?
I will. I definitely will. B'ezrat Hashem. But what I like about this verse is it says Yaakov was left alone and somebody struggled with him.
Yeah.
So the sages say it was the angel of Esav. It was Esav's.
They say many things. That's one of the answers.
That's one of them. And you can understand that because he's let's put this into psychological terms. He's very nervous about this upcoming battle. Okay, not spiritual terms, very psychological terms. He's very nervous about this upcoming battle. He's very upset about this thing, and then he's having
a nightmare.
Okay, and he's struggling in a nightmare.
He just left everything he owns across this river. What does it mean he got left there behind? He fell asleep. He was like, just gotta just sit for 1 minute. He's out.
Right.
Just like, by the way, the last time he was leaving his contest with Esav, that Vayetz Yaakov from Beersheba, and then
he
boom,
runs.
sun's down. He's like, whoa, dude, I
gotta rest.
Gotta rest. Boom, and he has a dream.
Right. Okay. So he's having a nightmare, and in this nightmare, he's maybe struggling with the Esav's angel. My take is, it says that he was alone. And then he struggled somebody. So if you're alone and you struggle with somebody, you're struggling with a part of you.
Yes.
Okay, with a part of you. And my new thought, which happened early this morning, was, he's struggling with the difference between Yaakov and Yisrael. There's two different modes here. There's two different modalities. The modality that you had when you got your brother's firstborn, and then you got your brother's blessing from your father, and the way you worked with Lavan and the Laban and all that business, that was the Yaakov modality, okay? Now you're crossing over into the land of Israel. You're mature. You got family. You got a different thing. You got to change gears now. You got to be the boss. and we're going to see the rest of the parsha. He's going to struggle between being the boss and
the rest of his existence.
Right. You got to be the boss and you got to be Israel now, which is a very, very big difference between Akev, Yaakov, which is sly, roundabout way. Okay, grabbing the heel, nipping at the heel, being like
right. But Akev also means to literally take a roundabout approach.
Right. It's right. It's the tricky path. Or in England they would call it clever. Being clever.
Yes.
That's what they call it in England. As opposed to Yisrael, which is Yashar El, you're the boss. It's straight through. You got to be clear. There's got to be clarity. You got to set down the law.
So I would add another piece from the Midrash that says that this was his Yetzer Hara, this was the angel of death.
Right.
And I'll point out to you that all of them are the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean that it was the Yetzer Hara, was the angel of death? It was the Sarah Shel, the angel of Esav, or it was struggling with himself. The piece to remember here is that Yaakov and Esav are twins. They're not just brothers.
Oh, right.
Right? And what's happening here, if you think back to our conversation about that image of a kol Yaakov, Yadayim Yidei Esav, right? That the voice is Yaakov's, the hands are Esav's, and how there are these two aspects to life, as we spoke about, of building the world in its physical sense, but also giving voice to the divine, which comes from within that physical world. And when you separate those two, that's the space in which death, the Yetzer Hara, which says that the world outside is its source of temptation, etc., and where the breakdown between these brothers come, right? What's he struggling to do? He's struggling to bring them into right relationship. And it's this. We could go on, trust me, for quite some time, which I'm planning to do this afternoon from 2:30 to 5 if you want to stick around. But the power here of this struggle, and absolutely pshat, my humble opinion, is he's struggling with himself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have one sentence. It's the same sentence. He's left alone and he struggles.
Right.
But that selfhood is the Esav. He's his twin.
Right.
And the sense that they're different people is the source of death and the Yetzer Hara.
Right. Now, the next verse is going to say to us, is going to keep going, also a very tight verse, and it says, send me. They're struggling. And one says to the other, Vayomer, saying, send me, for the dawn has risen. And the other one says, I shall not send you. I will not let you go. I shall not send you until if you bless me.
Right. By the way, it's important for the reader or the listener who's not as familiar with the text. It's very unclear who's speaking at any given moment.
That's what happens when you have two men in a dusty wrestling match, right?
I used to wrestle in high school.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Right, it's a dusty wrestling match.
Well, it's the most intimate form of struggle that you can really have.
Right. Okay, so it's hard to tell one from the other. Also, you can read it both ways. One is you're an angel, and that's the kind of common rabbinic standard, which is I'm an angel. It's time for me to do my angelic work in the mornings, so let me go. The other one is we got to wake up. We got to wake up. Like the dawn has risen, so we're going to wake up. This thing is ending. Let's finish this off. And says, I can't let you go until you bless me.
And, and there it's a question, where is he waking up from? Is he dreaming he's waking up to reality, or is the reality that he was living up till now was actually a dream? Uh-huh. His sense of Yaakov was a shell that he needed to wake up from. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of complexity.
That's awesome.
All those movies out there, like Inception and these other dream movies, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, sure.
Right? They're really based in this interaction here.
Sure.
Because there's a higher consciousness he's trying to birth.
I still think The Matrix is the pop and mom of all these
it's
movies.
True, but I have to say I think that Inception was a better movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I couldn't deal. But so he says, and now they're both going to ask each other's names. He says to him, Vayomer elav ma shemcha? Ma shmecha, Vayomer Yaakov. He says, what's your name? He says, my name is Jacob. Vayomer lo Yaakov yamer od shemcha. Kim Yisrael. Now your name is not going to be it's said anymore that it's Jacob. It's going to be Israel. Why? Ki sarita im Elokim ve'im anashim v'tochav, because you struggled with God and man, and you could, and you were able to.
So Yaakov wins, but he's limping.
He comes out limping. Yaakov comes out limping, and he comes out limping.
Gets his new name.
He gets his new name, but it's really a preview. It's a prequel.
Yes.
He doesn't get the new name. It's an unofficial.
Well, the angel actually says to him, "Your name will no longer be called." He doesn't actually rename him.
But but this is a preview. This is not the official. This is important to me because the official naming of it is going to be in Beit El. Okay, he's going to come back. It's going to be ceremonial. It's going to be ceremonial.
And it will come from the mouth of God.
Right. Exactly.
As
It'll be.
opposed to just
This is like getting the info from the enemy a little bit. This is like.
And in many ways, it's so critical because why? Because if he's struggling with himself, the God's not going to call you a name that you can't call yourself. Otherwise, it's a superimposition, and it takes away the very important human capacity for agency. Whereas once Yaakov struggled and at least heard that his name could be, then God says, by the way, I want you to know this is actually who you are. You'll live up to it or you won't. But you understand the difference? If God had just said, no, now you're Yisrael, it takes away his whole process. It takes away
you can't drop it down on a person. You
could, but they're no longer human, and it doesn't have value. So God can do whatever God wants. God could have made the perfect world. He could have made him Yisrael in the first place. He could have done anything. But that's not the point.
Maybe there's also an element of where the rabbis say that this is Esav's angel, that you have to struggle. Sometimes like your enemies got to say uncle. You know what I mean? The enemies got to admit. There's a difference. Like there's a lot of things in the Torah, for example, the purchasing of Marat Machpelah, where it's a human endeavor, and then God's going to give you your. By the way, Hanukkah's like that. Rabbi Mailam says Hanukkah says they fought a struggle, and the victory itself was a great thing. But then God came down with the miracle of the lamp with the oil, is to say like yes.
So I'll give you an invite. And anybody else who's listening, my father's yard site's coming up on December 19th in the secular calendar. The night of December 19th here at Pardes, anybody who's in Israel, I'm giving my annual Hanukkah Shir, and it's going to be on releasing the light within. Mm-hmm. It's exactly that relationship. Are those two different stories, the candle and the military victory, which I certainly hold it is not.
Right.
And it really has to do with this sense that you know a person by their enemies.
I cannot believe the book of Maccabees. I've been reading it lately.
Which one? Number 1 or 2?
1 right now, but like I can't believe it. It's just.
This is an important question. Why it was excluded from the canon of the Hebrew Bible?
It was excluded from the Bible, but not from our reading.
No, but that's exactly my point. Is it didn't disappear like some of the Apocrypha, which is just like wacky and let's just say runs counter to much of the biblical narrative. But
it's a history book in ways.
Well, but it's more than it's. I don't go too far into it. We can discuss it. Maybe we'll do a Hanukkah show in a couple of weeks. But it's an important work. It's worth reading. Yeah, it's. By
shocking.
The way, you should read the letters at the beginning of the second book as well. They're very interesting.
Okay, it's shocking to me. I was shocked.
Which parts of it?
How much killing there was.
Oh, it's brutal.
How much death there was. Oh, so now I'm on Twitter with some friends these days, and he's like, well, the reason that the rabbis didn't focus on it is because they were concerned that the Maccabees were too violent, etc., and therefore, really the story of Hanukkah is really the story of tolerance. Help me with other words like this that are right. So he's giving.
I wish they could see my faces.
Yeah.
Like whatever you think about violence and fanaticism, this is not its holiday.
He basically spun it that Hanukkah is a book about is the holiday of watching out for too much zealotry.
What? If I'm a stabra. I mean,
I know.
You like it or hate it, the Hanukkah is a story of religious fanaticism. I hear what he's saying. I mean, the downplaying the military victory.
Right.
But don't forget, the story of Nes Pach Hashem and the story of the candle and the whole oil thing comes at the conclusion when the Maccabees, victorious, having destroyed the Greeks, walk into the temple. Right. Meaning they're not separate even in the narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I wrote, Hanukkah Redux. It's really the story about too much zealotry. Calm down. Judah, you're interrupting the class. Sit down. Judah, you can get a nice job and be a regular person and take this pill for your ADD. Ooh. Okay, right? That's Judah, right? You're a little too worked up here, kiddo.
Handle the system.
You obviously need some soma or whatever it is, or some what do you call it? And everything will be just fine. And that threw me to where this came in my head right now is what you said about Jacob. But like, snap out, Jacob. Like your whole life is like, it's time to be bigger. It's time to be bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, here we go. Two more points that we have to talk about. One is three more points. One is, okay, there's the meeting place. There's the meeting moment between Esav and Jacob. A few important points here. One is that Esav runs towards him. This
Yeah,
the running of the
this is the movie moment where you're like, where, what?
yeah, the running of Bigfoot towards you is scary. Okay.
I do kind of picture it. Isn't that moment in Braveheart when he's like, in front of the field, like
it's like fee fi fo fun type of thing, and he's running towards you. In Russian, we have a character called Barmale, and he's like this. He's this big, scary ogre. In any case, he's running towards him, and he hugs him, and he falls on his neck. Who's falling on the neck doesn't know, and he kissed him, and they cried. Different interpretations for kissed him. One is that he tried to bite him.
Right. But his neck turned to marble.
His neck turned to marble, broke Esav's teeth.
That's gotta hurt.
That's like a whole like totally different take on this. And then I'll never forget this. I read this in the Sfat Emet. The Sfat Emet says, "Hey, rabbis, you can't do that. It says kiss him. You can't turn that into bite him. It doesn't work that way. The Torah said he kissed him.
Here he says that? Here? I mean, you can say that in 1,000 places.
But it says the word kissed. You can't turn that into bite.
That didn't stop
so he goes, what they meant is Esav's kiss is his bite.
Ooh.
Oh!
Ooh. Careful.
Bang! I know.
Careful. That's all the anti-Trumpists out there are going to throw that one right back at you.
Okay, could be. Or it could be that's right. They could throw it back at me, and that's fine.
Or it could be the other shot, what happens there, which is that the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, no, halacha psuka, like it is well-known fact that Esav hates Yaakov. But what? In this moment, he actually loved him.
Right.
That was a genuine moment because there's a potential for a restoration of the relationship.
That's right. And there's a messianic moment here.
Yeah.
In any case, though, it's also obvious that the next moment is that Yaakov wants to distance himself from Esav. Esav very famously says here, Vayomer, like Yaakov wants him to take the gifts. Take the gifts, take all the gifts. And Esav says, Yesh li rav. I've got a lot. First thing, it's nice that he has a rabbi. That's what I said. Even Esav's got a rav. No, actually what it means is I have a lot. And as opposed to Yaakov, who says later on, I have everything. I have everything I need.
I got it all.
But do you remember this goes? I think this is an awesome throwback to
Rav Yavot Tza'ir.
I'm Rav. I got a lot. As opposed to young.
Right.
You know what I mean? As opposed to me, who's, as you said, like up and coming. And
there's some way in which it's an admission that I've accepted the fact that actually you are now in charge.
That's right. Okay. In any case, please take all this stuff, and now you have seen my face. Here's that pasuk again in a different way. Alken ra'iti panecha. I have now seen your face. Panecha kirot pnei Elohim. I have seen your face like we're seeing the face of God. V'tirtzeni, and you have accepted me.
Which shows you that his inner process began with the fear he was feeling in his preparations, peaks in the struggle at night with Elohim, remember the Sarita Anashim Elohim, right? And then he realizes now that he's seen Esav's face, like, oh, wow, this is God. This is all God. And that's really the Yisrael posture, is that Yaakov's sort of need for cleverness is the same need that we all have to like make it work, which is an important skill, you know, but to like figure it out, make it work. And part of the greatness of Yisrael is the ability to look at the world and say, oh, actually it's been God all along. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not going to give up.
So seeing your face is like seeing the face of God.
That's what he says.
Right.
Right. Right. Now that I see that this whole fear, think about it. Have you ever been really, really worried about a situation over an intense period of time?
Sure.
And then when it resolves itself, what's the experience you have?
Well, it's great relief, but it's also sometimes...
it's almost revelatory.
Right.
Like, wow, where was I?
Right.
When I was in the dark moments of fear. That's a real awakening. Right. Like, oh... gosh, now I see.
Interestingly enough, though, after this awakening, you would think that Yaakov would do the two things that he said he would do, which is basically to go back to Beit El and to go back to see his father, but there's a stopover.
Oh, yes.
And that stopover is in the city of Shechem for Christians, Nablus for Arabs in the times of Israel. And this town, Shechem, Nablus, Alon Morez there. Very beautiful place in Samaria, the capital of Samaria, really.
Thank God after these rains, it'll start turning green.
Yeah, beautiful. Such an important place, and people don't really understand what Shechem is and how many things have happened there in the Jewish story. Sadly, today we really have no presence in the town of Shechem, except for
Except for the
for
burnt out remnants of Joseph's tomb. That
right,
gets
which gets
periodically.
monthly visitations, right? But in this town, which Rashi says is a town that has a preset of violence and a tendency. It's a problematic tendency that it's got in that town. So Yaakov is going to do two things. First thing, he's going to buy a piece of property. That's very important.
Listen, you're in Israel now.
Yeah, you got to buy a piece of property. You got to buy property.
You see
that's
a good
right.
piece of land. Don't let it
and
go,
that's
people.
That's the piece of land that's going to be the tomb of Joseph later on. But also there's the story of Dinah. Dinah is the daughter that was mentioned as being born earlier on. She gets taken by the chieftain's son in that town. That's Shechem ben Chamor. Shechem is the name of the city, but the kid's name is Shechem also. Chamor means donkey, but it's also the name of his father.
Awkward, but true.
Awkward, yeah. And now I'll tell you something. I really feel a little remiss talking about this without the help of the Arizal, which explains this in who these souls are. And there's a lot more there. And you know what? I don't know it well enough. And I invite any of our listeners to
the Isbitzer gives it over as well.
Do you know it? Do you know this stuff? Like who's it's
not,
like
no,
it's
not
like
going to give the dramatis personae behind this.
Right, it's like
very
a
complex.
whole right.
But it's a redemptive vision. It is the key. Is that actually everything that was happening here was people trying to do right.
Right.
Even Shechem in his violation of Dinah.
Right.
That there were souls that needed to come together. That's the Kiddush, so to speak.
Right.
The innovative view.
Right, because people see this. If you see it only two-dimensionally, it's
well, it's kind of like we spoke about. I remember what it was a week or two or three ago. That this is one of these stories which is meant to be problematic.
Right.
Right. Shechem rapes Dinah and basically takes her captive, and then falls in love and asks for her hand in marriage. The brothers, or to Yaakov, the brothers, Shimon and Levi in particular, say like you can't do that. They trick him into literally dropping his defenses, right, by circumcising all the men of the town, and then they proceed to kill them all.
So all the men of the town agree to join
with Yaakov
and his sons by circumcising themselves on the third day after the circumcision, when they're all the men. These are mature men,
right?
Are debilitated. The sons of Yaakov come into town and they slay them all.
Yes,
and then they take the booty.
Right.
Now. In the world of Jewish, from right wing to zealous, right? There's a discussion always about this Torah portion.
Yes, which is a very old discussion in Zionism.
Right.
Chernikovsky writes a poem where he basically says we should be more like Shimon and Levi.
Right.
In the wake of the riots in the 1920s.
Right. Be like Shimon and Levi. Wipe these people out.
And he puts it in the voice of Dinah, like thank you for avenging me.
Thank you for avenging me. But Jacob, notice I didn't say Israel. Jacob says, hey, you've made me look really bad in front of all these people. How could you have done this thing? And now we're going to be attacked.
And he later curses their anger.
He later is going to curse their anger. And they say to him, what, they're going to make our sister into a prostitute? And that's it.
Yep.
And there's no answer there. Now, that answer could be, you're right, or it could be, I can't talk to you. You guys are out of control, violent, angry.
Which, again, in my modern Zionist discourse, Professor Leibowitz, writes an essay in 1953 after the Kibbutz retaliatory raid, where Israel crossed into Jordan and killed close to 70 civilians in response to a terrorist attack. And he writes this very powerful essay called After Kibbutz. It was a turning point in his life. One of the things he says, he talks about Shimon and Levi here, and he says that the conclusion, the fact that Yaakov says, hey, you made me look bad, and the brothers say, you can't treat our sister like that, and Yaakov says nothing but curses them later, says it's possible that an action which is correct can still be cursed. Which is an interesting, and it deserves thought, meaning it's the right thing you did, but don't think that it's not going to give birth to evil and problems in our lives.
Right.
Anyway.
Right, but folks on the more aggressive side say, you see, this is how we have to deal with our enemies. For example, just this morning I had a conversation with somebody, and he says to me, the mayor of Arab Hebron is the guy who murdered 6 Jews by his own admission. We all know it. And it's like, well, we should get rid of him, etc. But I want to say something to you, which I'll never forget. I think I said this to you last year as well. There's a Russian guy in Beitel. He lives in Beitel now. He lives in the Golan Heights. He said to me, Russian Jew, he gave me an explanation about why Yaakov was so upset at Shimon and Levi. I'll never forget this explanation because I thought it was so brilliant. He says he wasn't so upset that they killed the town. What he was really upset about was that they used the circumcision, which is come be holier, come be closer to God, come be like us.
Yeah.
As in a fake of both peace and a fake of come be more close to religion, to Torah, to God. And on that, you can't injure our good name, the good name of God on that.
It's a great shot because it explains then why Yaakov curses their anger, because they were so angry that they were willing to do whatever it took to take revenge.
Right.
And they could never have overcome the whole city without that.
Right.
And so in their desire to vent their anger, they corrupted something which, as you're saying, is the ultimate sign of covenant.
Right. You can't do that.
That's a great shot.
You can't. Yeah, I know. That's why I never forgot it. I'm like,
you did tell me that last year, but I had forgotten.
Because you can't play, and you can't play with God's name.
I'm going to talk about that with my kids.
We're here to sanctify God's name, and you can't use the sanctification of God's name as your tool to trick people in war.
Right.
You want to go kill them because you think it's right? Go ahead. Go in the night, do your thing, fight a battle, whatever you want.
But my point was, somewhere they knew they couldn't have done it without that.
Maybe, but the bottom line is, don't do that. Don't go over this.
Yeah.
This is a wrong thing because our whole thing, and that's what he says. You made my name stinky.
Yeah.
Because our whole thing is our we carry the name of Yaakov, the name of Israel, and you can't do that.
Chazak.
And Kotlerov told me that. That's his name. In any case, great stuff. Finally, we'll just finish off here, which is they end up going finally to Beit El. After the whole Shechem business, after that purchase of the land, after the Shechem and Dinah story, they go to Beit El, and it is there that the name Beit El gets given yet again 2 more times. It's called El Beit El or Beit El or Elohim Beit El, I think. But okay, in any case, it's given the name. This is the house of God, and God indeed gives him the name Israel again. Oh, the nations didn't change. Did not chase after Jacob. He comes to Beit El, which is really a little bit south of we're heading south the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We're
slowly trying to get home.
From Shechem to Beit El and to all there today. Somebody passes away as he's getting to Beit El, and that is the nursemaid of Rivka, which we learned about all the way in Chai Sarah, that her nursemaid came with her, and the rabbis say this is actually a euphemism for her, for Rivka. She passes away as her promise is fulfilled that I'll bring you back to this land. I'll bring you back to this land. So when he comes back to Beit El, it passes away this nursemaid that represents Rivka, and God says to him, Lo yikra shimcha od Yaakov, your name is not going to be called Yaakov, ki im Yisrael, for it's going to be called Israel. Yesh shimcha v'karet shmo Yisrael, and that's going to be your name. And he called his name Israel, Yisrael. And then very finally, after all that, the last stop is, let's go together with the family and see Dad. Let's go see Dad, and let me bring my beloved children and my beloved wives, and certainly especially my beloved wife, Rachel Imenu. And as they're walking south yet more, past Jerusalem, somehow it doesn't mention that, but then towards Bethlehem.
Well, of course it doesn't mention it.
Huh?
It wasn't Jerusalem yet.
Right, it wasn't Jerusalem, right. But it doesn't even, there's no Shalem or anything like that. I'm just saying, he walks past it, and then instead of getting home, finally, together, Rachel Imenu, she passes away. Before that, let's say, celebratory full thing, you know what I mean? It doesn't happen. Rachel passes away. She has that son. She has that Israeli son, the Sabra son that's going to be born. That's going to be Binyamin, and that's going to happen at Bethlehem on the road to Efrat, which is in Judea. And
another famous Jewish kid born in Bethlehem.
That's right, King David. Right? Is that what you're talking about? Sure. King David was certainly born in Bethlehem. He's a Judite. One of the amazing thing about the area of that area of Judah is that it's really the center of the tribe of Judah, and yet it's Rachel, which is from the mother of the other tribes. She's there. It shows a certain togetherness.
Sure.
And she passes away there. Yaakov makes a marker, which is going to be her tomb, and the Torah says to this very day. And we have plenty of evidence that Jewish people have been in this one place ever since. You know about my pet peeve. Let's not go there. Don't go there. And then and that's Rachel. And finally, yet one more is that they do show up finally with the whole entourage at Yitzchak's home. The ganze Mishpucha.
This is the ganze Mishpucha.
The ganze Mishpucha shows up. Whoa!
Well,
that's a lot.
3 daughters-in-law.
Right.
It's like they used to be 4, right?
Right. And he was blind already a long time ago now. But he gets to...
Now, fortunately, he's deaf.
Yeah, Yitzchak sees the whole family. And very, very finally is that Yitzchak passes away very unceremoniously, by the way. Both Yitzchak and Rivka pass away very unceremoniously. It's 1, 2, 3, and it says they buried him. Who buried him? Esav. And Yitzchak, the Torah gives credit to Esav for being the first son to bury Yitzchak, who was famous also for Kibud Av V'em. And they bury him. And then the very end of the Torah portion is the litany list.
The lineage of Esav.
The lineage of Esav and how his princesses emerged, including
Amalek.
Including a little Amalek in there. It's got
I knew where you were going.
The Amalek spice is in there.
That's right. A little foreshadowing.
That's right. And that's the end of the. That's kind of the end of the Jacob. The Jacob story continues, right? But that's the end of his adventures.
Yes.
Right. The rest of the adventures are going to be.
He's now the context for what comes after.
Right. Everybody carries. You notice that?
Yeah.
Like Yitzchak carries.
Yitzchak was
carries
in that
Abraham.
sense, yeah.
Yaakov in many ways carries Yitzchak, and he swears of Pachad Yitzchak, whatever. And he finally sees him, and now Yaakov's kids are going to carry the name Israel.
He will become the context, actually, for all of us to this very day.
Amazing stuff. Okay, amazing stuff. We covered a lot.
Yeah, it was good work there.
God bless you, Rabbi Mike Feuer. I want to thank you so much, and I'm not going to be seeing you next week. I'm flying out to the U.S. for a quick cause match campaign for the Jewish community of Hebron for Hebron Fund.
Well,
so I'll be
hugely successful.
in Heilige, Brooklyn, and my wife asked me to bring back some Cholov Yisrael butter.
Oh, the butter crisis goes on.
It's all going to get solved at the same time. We're going to get a new government. There's going to be new butter,
and they're going to build the temple.
They're going to build the temple. That's exactly right. Okay, that's you got.
From your
it.
mouth to God's ears.
There you go. Amen. Thank you very much for joining us, Rabbi Mike. People can reach you very easily at ravmike@thelandofisrael.com and also at jewishstory.co, as in we're all together in this, right?
Right.
And then also
on Facebook.
on facebook.com/ravmike. And myself, you can reach in similar variants via Yishai Fleisher via YishaiFleisher.com or Yishai@thelandofisrael.com or just at Yishai Fleisher at anything. I'm out there.
Google it, people.
Yeah, Google it. You don't need to spell it. Oh, and speaking of Google, thanks for starting to host these podcasts, all of our podcasts, the Land of Israel podcast and my podcast here as well, and Rabbi Mike's Jewish Story, I think at Google Podcasts. Yeah, Google Podcasts. You just type it in. Google, they just
hop stuff.
Right, they hop it.
I find myself in crazy places. It's fun.
It's good. It's good.
No, I'm all for
it.
As long as I'm giving it out for free.
God bless Google. And remember, Google, don't be evil. All right? Remember, that's your...
No evil search engines.
That's right. Just stick to that. All right, folks, more great stuff. We'll try to get Malkah on, so stay tuned. More great stuff is on the way. Lots of love from the land of Israel, the land of blessings. Blessings to you from Yerushalayim. Rabbi Mike, thanks again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
This week on Rejuvenation with Eve Harrow, an interview with Ari Lieberman, author of the new book, The Emperors and the Jews. It's an in-depth and heavily researched look at the relationship between the leaders of the Jewish people and the Greco-Roman worlds in the era of the Second Temple and centuries afterward.
Alexander sees this very impressive entourage. They've been both coming at night. It's now daybreak. The sun is coming up. Everybody senses there's something that's going to happen here. And Alexander sees Shimon, the righteous, and he jumps off his horse and he bows down. He has never done this to anybody ever.
For the full interview, listen to Rejuvenation with Eve Harrow on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Judea. I mean live as in we're alive, and we're actually broadcasting. And speaking of live, there's my beloved Malkah Fleisher.
Hello,
how are you?
Yishai. Boker Tov.
Boker Tov, and good morning from Yehuda. And thanks for everybody for joining us here on the Land of Israel Network. Lots of news to discuss, Malkah. First is that there's more details that have come out about this Jersey City attack on a Jewish supermarket there,
Right.
Where 4 people, including a police officer, 2 Jews, and a worker, have been murdered.
Right.
The the likely murderers, the people who carried out the attack, are a couple of black Hebrews, which are a type of Christian type sect,
right?
Which I kind of think that they are the
actual Jews mentioned in the Torah, and that the white, if you could call us white Jews, are not the Jews,
right? It's like a type of interloper, and but this duo is also likely to have been. They're saying that they may be also part of a killing of another killing altogether.
Right. Like they're wanted possibly in another killing of a different person.
So it turns out that this is
right, some really violent
it's
backwards
like
people.
Maybe a mixture of both anti-Semitism and also just regular
craziness, plain old crazy hate.
Violence, right?
But anyway, they are determining. Like right now, it seems that authorities are leaning toward calling this a hate crime. I think that there's a lot of it's like a dance being done over there, because on the one hand, everyone recognizes that there's like all these stores around, and yet they happen to walk into like the one Hasidic Jewish store and start mowing people down there. Apparently, the video shows that they like walked by several other stores.
Right.
On their way to this store. And then they just walked in and started firing at people, killing 31-year-old Mindel Ferenc, the co-owner and wife of the owner of the store, and Moshe Deutsch, a 24-year-old yeshiva student. On the one hand, they're like, yeah, of course this is an anti-Semitic attack. On the other hand, there seems to be a general fear today. There's these two forces pulling on Jews in America, it feels like today. On the one hand, they want to say that this is an anti-Semitic attack because Jews want to fight anti-Semitism, so they want to call it out where it happens. And right now, Jews are like very sensitive to anti-Semitism, and the word anti-Semitism is being used a lot on social media, even not connected to this issue. A lot of like left-leaning Jews, they want to accuse President Trump, of being anti-Semitic and saying that he has the support of a lot of white nationalists. This was an argument that was made early on, was that Trump was supported by white nationalists, and this things happened in Charlottesville. There were neo-Nazis at this big rally in Charlottesville, and then this somehow reflects on Trump. And then there's people on the other side of the pendulum who say that Trump is a philosemitic. His own daughter is Jewish. His granddaughter is Jewish. He's constantly doing all of these acts for Israel that are very unusual for American presidents to do. That he shows like inordinate support for Israel and spends an inordinate amount of his career as president doing things on behalf of Israel. And so he's philosemitic. But then the left has been using a lot of this anti-Semitism. Trump is anti-Semitic. But now there seems to be a fear on the left, and maybe on the right, I'm not sure where it all falls out on the political spectrum, of actually saying anti-Semitic, because they're scared that the more you say that things are anti-Semitic, the more attention you draw toward Jews, the more resentment you draw toward Jews, and the more anti-Semitism you actually create.
I want to tell you that my friend Andy from Atlanta sent me a video of a rabbi speaking from the Agudat Yisrael of America.
Yeah,
it's a Haredi rabbi, ultra-Orthodox rabbi, and he goes, "Do you want to know what the root of anti-Semitism in America is? It's like we have two congressmen and one senator that are very Jewish with Jewish names, and all day long they attack the president of the United States.
Interesting.
And they're very, very overtly Jewish, and they don't. And he goes, don't they understand that we're in Gullus? And he goes, this is what he says. He goes,
in exile.
He goes, we're in a host country. That's exactly what I wrote. I wrote exactly these things. He goes, we're in a host country. We're living in their land right now. You can't be going out against the president of the United States. So
right.
They don't understand where we are. Right, you can't do it. And he goes, our real home is Eretz Yisrael and all that.
Ugh.
But like the point is,
Come home, that, Rabbi.
Yeah, but the point is, I think that he does have a grip on it, which is like you, in your interest to stave off anti-Semitism, you go on the attack on the president of the United States and call him an anti-Semite. That is not. That is neither, in my opinion, true, Nor
I mean,
is
I
it,
think it's like the least true thing. Like, I feel like we're living in alternate realities today. There's the perceptions are so extremely different today of what the reality is that it's really shocking. The White House had their Hanukkah party on Wednesday, Yishai. We were not invited this year, but that's okay. President Donald Trump, you can invite us next time.
he
Okay?
just doesn't know,
I
he
think
doesn't know you as well.
I
as
think
he
you
should.
have a few more years to invite us to your
You
Hanukkah
should
party.
you should make him like one of your blinches or something like that.
I'll make him blinches. I heard that he's like skeptical of other people's food, though.
Oh,
But I'm Chalav Yisrael. He doesn't have to worry. Anyway,
we're not going to call you an anti-Semite.
yeah, that's for sure. He had his Hanukkah party, and at the Hanukkah party, he signed an executive order targeting anti-Semitism, primarily in the form of Israel boycotts on college campuses. Some of you may have been following this story. I mean, you can't help it if you're in the news, because like every single thing that Trump does becomes this, like, they put the magnifying glass on. Anyway, he signed an executive order which says that basically says that Jews are a nationality which needs protection. And really, he's like sort of aiming at college campuses, which get tons of federal funding and do nothing to stop the insane anti-Semitic flare which is occurring all across the country. And as is not news to almost anyone who's listening to this show, college campuses throughout the United States and really throughout all the Western world have become really taken up with leftism and with the pro-Palestinian movement and with the anti-Israel movement, and that translates down into anti-Semitism. So Trump is basically saying that Jews are a nationality in need of protection, and if you do a bad job getting protection, then protecting the Jews, then you don't get your federal funding, right? And so all these college campuses who really need the federal funding, even though they charge an arm and a leg for your education, they're going to start thinking differently about how they present information which could lead to anti-Semitism on campus, right? And this is like the battle for minds that's going on in America. This ties into something else that I want to talk about in a minute. But he signed this thing calling Jews this nationality, right? So then what happens on Twitter? I woke up in the morning, I turned on my phone, and I saw that Trump is going to be signing this executive order. So I wrote on Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter, Malkah Fleisher on Twitter. I wrote on Twitter, I can't wait to see how people call this use this to show that Trump is a big anti-Semite. It took about 25 seconds for me to find my first example of how Trump was being called an anti-Semite. Basically, the left is now saying that Trump is denuding Jews of their American nationality, right? Because if you get an American passport, if you get a passport anywhere in the world, it writes nationality, and your nationality is the country that gave you your passport, right? So you have an American nationality. Yishai, you have an Israeli passport, so you have Israeli nationality. But you also have an American passport, so you're American nationality. Elema, though what? Jews consider themselves a nation, right? We're the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, right? We call it the Jewish people in English, but really it's the Jewish nation, and Am in Hebrew is a nation. The Am Yisrael is the nation of Israel. We are a nation. So our nationality is also Jewish. So people are saying, wait a second, I'm an American. I don't want to be said that I'm the Jewish national.
You mean our ethnic group is
right. So that's the rub, right? Is that this executive order calls for the protection of endangered a nationality, right? And they say that the Jews were a nationality. Now, so some people are like, yeah, that's it. They're just like, yeah, we are a nationality. And obviously he's not talking about that we're not Americans. Like, that's ridiculous. He's talking about the fact that we have this Jewish nationality and we deserve protection. Thank you very much. But then you have the left who's like, no. My Judaism, I'm in the Jewish religion. Although I'm sure if you would dig a little deeper, they would have a hard time dislocating themselves from the Jewish nationhood. If you would suggest to them that just because they don't practice Judaism doesn't mean they're not Jewish, because their mother is Jewish, so they're part of the Jewish nation, that would be a big hot argument. But basically, they say, I'm an American. And that's what they want their nationality to be.
Right.
And on the one hand, I appreciate that on the technical level, meaning to say they don't, the people are throwing around the words Nuremberg laws, right? Separating Jews out as not part of the German nationality, which I think is the height of ridiculousness. I think that there's I think that no sane person could say that that's what Trump is doing. But let's say you're really, really paranoid. They're saying that Trump is separating Jews out and claiming that they have a different nationality than other Americans, which makes them nervous also, because this is like a predecessor oftentimes to anti-Semitism. They don't want to be thought of as a different nationality. They want to be thought of as exactly the same thing as what everybody else is, which on the one hand I can totally appreciate, right? You just want to what you really want to do with your day is get up in the morning, watch the Today Show, go to work, pick something up at Target on the way home, go to a nice restaurant with your family at night, and go to bed. That's what you want, right? You're not looking to be singled out or special in the United States. On the other hand, there's no doubt that there is a serious problem going on in the United States. Yishai, I don't know if this is a good moment to segue into this, but there was a survey done in the UK, which I think is very telling. They did a survey in the UK. They're having a big election, right? This is like the big Jeremy Corbyn question and what's the future of the British Jews and everything. So they did a survey asking 2,500 Jewish and Muslim people what they find offensive. I thought that was interesting. I found this on Yahoo News. It was published in Ethnic and Racial Studies, which I guess is a journal. Here's what Jews find offensive. And here's what Muslims find offensive. I think this is an interesting juxtaposition. Attitudes towards Jews. Jews don't like the following. Israelis behave, quote unquote, like Nazis toward the Palestinians. Does not consider Jews living in the UK.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm saying that they gave them a few phrases.
Okay.
And they wanted to know which one of these are offensive. Here's the phrases that they gave them and wants to know if they find them offensive. So here's the ones about Jews. Israelis behave like Nazis toward the Palestinians. Like Nazis. They don't want to be compared to Nazis vis-a-vis Palestinians. They find that offensive.
Jews find that
Jews
offensive. Okay.
in the UK who were surveyed. Next one. Does not consider Jews living in the UK to be British. They want to be considered British. That's offensive. Jews are not capable of integrating into British society. They don't want to be considered that way. The interests of Jews in the UK are very different from the interests of the rest of the population. They don't want to be considered that different from the population, and they don't have different interests. Jews have too much power in British economy, politics, and media. And the last one, the Holocaust is a myth or has been exaggerated. These are all top offensive ideas for Jews in the UK. Here's ones that Muslims don't like. Most Muslims sympathize with terrorists. British Muslims do not share Western values. British Muslims have no interest in integrating into British society. The interests of Muslims in Britain are very different from the interests of the rest of the population. That's the similarity between the Jews and the Muslims. Muslims have too much influence in Britain, and Muslims often overreact to criticism of their religion. So Jews, I want to break this down for a second. I know this is a survey, but I found this very interesting. You had the option of saying it does offend me, it doesn't offend me, or I don't know. So only 1 to 3% of Jewish respondents didn't know the answer to the question, whether it offends them or doesn't. They knew whether they're offended or not. But Muslims was very different. For each Islamophobic statement shown to Muslim respondents, between 15 and 22% answered, I don't know, which is very different. I don't know what it means. Does it mean that the Muslims think that there's a truth in it, that they are? I don't know what that means. Okay. The most offensive...
Sometimes the Islamic world doesn't want to be perceived as integrationists.
Right.
And they want to keep their
right. They like to actually not be
assimilationist. Right. So, but the Jews are oftentimes want to be more assimilationist. Right.
I think I think there's a truth there. Okay. Next, the most offensive anti-Jewish statement was about the Holocaust. That's the one that offended the most people. 96% of Jews were offended said that it was anti-Semitic to say that the Holocaust was a myth.
Okay.
Other statements were perceived as anti-Semitic by between 82 and 94%. The least offensive of all the statements, which was still very offensive, but still the least, was the idea of being called Nazi-like toward Palestinians. Only 73% of Jews saw that as anti-Semitic.
Only 73%. That's
a lot. That's a lot.
Overwhelming
it's
majority.
A lot. It is definitely it's still offensive. But if you consider that 96% were offended by the Holocaust, that's really a 23% difference.
Because you have a large contingent of liberal Jews, and certainly in England there's a lot of liberal Jews, and so some of them believe to an extreme that we're treating the Palestinians like Nazis.
So this is I want to just show you what I think to be the most eye-opening part of the whole poll.
Okay.
The study found differences within each group. Jewish respondents aged over 40, so your age, Yishai, were between 80 and 90% more likely to be sensitive than those aged between 18 and 39.
Okay.
AKA, the over 40s were way more upset by anti-Semitic statements than the younger crowd, which means that the younger crowd seemingly didn't have as much problem with a lot of those statements than the older crowd.
That could be what it means. It could also mean other things.
Age was not a factor for Muslim respondents. Mm-hmm. Muslim respondents across the age spectrum felt the same way,
right,
more or less, than the Jews. Whereas the older camp was almost double the sensitivity to anti-Semitism than the younger crowd.
Okay, so
which shows to me that there is a fundamental difference in the way that Muslims are educating their kids than the way that Jews are educating their kids.
Yeah, definitely you get the feeling that, and you also tweeted some of these interviews with Israeli Arab young people, and they really do mimic the same attitudes that the older ones have.
I just want to show you one more thing in this poll before we can talk about it. Education. This is what I was talking about American campus. Let's see. Education played an important role. This is the UK, okay, not the US, but still. Education played an important role for both groups, but seemed to push sensitivity in opposite directions. Perk up your ears. Muslim respondents with degrees, like education, were 63% more likely to find all statements offensive. They were 70% more likely to be sensitive about Muslims not sharing Western values. That's interesting. By contrast, Jewish respondents with degrees were 35% less likely than those without to be sensitive toward the linking of Israelis and Nazis. Jewish respondents in education, educators, or maybe students also, were 66% less likely than those in employment to be sensitive to all the statements. And they were 56% less likely to be sensitive to the linking of Israelis and Nazis. Do you understand what's going on in the education of Jews today? They are stripping Jews systematically of their connection to Israel, of their connection to Judaism, and making them sympathetic with anti-Semitic statements. I woke up this morning, this is one of the pieces of news that I read as I was trying to fight the desire to go back to sleep, and it jolted me awake, this story.
Yep.
It is absolutely terrifying to think that and it's like, this is almost proof. It's like Muslims in education are like they learn to be geared more towards sensitivity, toward Islamophobic statements. But Jews are taught to be less sensitive to anti-Semitic statements in education in the United Kingdom. This is a crisis, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. And therefore, when President Trump is like, holy moly, Jews are like, I don't even know why. I guess he has good people talking in his ear.
No.
He's like, the campus is a dangerous place for Jews
just
today.
So you know, this law that's being signed
Yeah.
is a long
Long in
road.
coming.
It started, I think, in 2003, but
Wow.
in 2010, already under the Obama administration, this was written. And
Right. So it was finally signed. Well,
Right.
good for the Obama administration then, for getting the ball rolling. I guess that they have a merit there. But it's like it's an emergency. And I'm very grateful that someone's trying to do something, anything at this point,
Yeah,
to
but I'm
try and stop this scourge.
Yeah, but no. Wait. I don't think that this law is going to stem the scourge in any way.
Not in any way.
No, it's only going to stem actual attacks. But maybe it will. But
I don't
slowly.
think kids are getting beaten in the face so much. For
I'm just saying.
American campus.
This what you're talking about is so subtle, and the teaching of it is so pervasive and subtle that it's not going to change how people are educating. Okay, I'll give another tool for prosecution against people who do something bad, but generally speaking, like what you're talking about is a giant wave of how the academic world is orienting itself, and it's orienting strong pro-Islam and pro doing away with quote unquote Islamophobia, which is a way of also getting rid of the defenses against the influx of jihad ideas into America, UK, etc., and sensitizing people to making Israel into a bad guy. And this is what I'm talking about all the time.
Not a bad guy, Yishai, a Nazi.
A Nazi.
Jewish kids are not so offended by the idea that Israelis are being compared to Nazis.
Because that is the subtle and yet recurring theme all the time. And so there must be some truth in it. And so that's and Malkah, can I tell you something? Like, this is great what you're talking about. I'm very happy that you've analyzed and understood this. I've been feeling like I've been trying to say this kind of thing about the narrative war for a long time.
Well,
like
obviously, but here's your footnote in your, you know what I mean, in
Right.
your essay.
Right, because the crisis, and I was at this David Harwood's Freedom Center, and I was speaking to them. They were all looking at me like dumbfounded, and I'm like, they're not going after you guys. They're going after your kids. They're trying to erase your kids' minds. And you've identified the two polarities, meaning to say desensitize on anti-Semitism and the idea that Israelis are Nazis towards Palestinians, and sensitize the other way. So it's like a 180-degree polarity turn in the minds of young people, and it also it strengthens the jihadist type attitude in a Muslim, and undermines Zionist type attitudes.
But yes, Zionist for sure.
Jewish
Zionist attitudes,
identity.
but really, that's a word that people are so confused by that it's hard to use today. I think that what you're really saying is fundamental.
What you just said is
a proof.
Is a tolada, like it's born out of it. It's
right.
It's exact that
right. But I'm saying in order to be able to speak to people in a normal fashion, it's okay to break it down. And what I'm saying is that the pro-Semitic. It's hard to be pro-Semitic in all the aspects, and one of the aspects is the return to Zion and the Jewish fundamental connection to the land of Israel.
Yes, but I don't think Zionism is a bad word, and I think that it's become a bad word because we Jewish people stupidly infight about all these terms, right? And we also we bear a chunk of responsibility on this. We bear a chunk, and I blame Israel, and I blame the Hasbara industry.
Yes,
they
got us into this mess.
We also got ourselves into this. If we took back Judea and Samaria, where the so-called Palestine or Palestinians live, and we didn't say this is our land,
well,
this is our land
Israel.
forever.
The people who live here are saying that constantly.
No, they're not. Our country has not said that.
Not our country. I'm talking about the people who live in Judea and Samaria.
But our country has not made the country
has not. And with all the love and respect to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who had 100 billion years in office, he made a few nice speeches, but in reality, he didn't lock anything down, and he was also part of the problem. And now his reign is in question yet again.
Yes, and let's just pivot very quickly to that piece of news, which is. Knack. Okay, like we're going to third elections here,
yes.
folks, And for me also personally, there's like a conflict, a scheduling conflict. I'm like, yo, like these elections, they're
Get in
not
the
like
way of my party.
they're like right. It's like I'm supposed to be at APAC and I'm supposed to be doing an event there for Judean Samaria.
Yeah, it's a
And
conflict.
it's a big
question mark.
conflict. And we're going to third elections.
Yep.
And wow, like to me, and I tweeted this in Hebrew yesterday, which is like, I don't think we should be just going to elections for the next Knesset, but we should be going to elections, or in America we call it a referendum.
Yeah. On this
about
whole system.
The system, like
There's a problem. It
there's
shouldn't
a
be like
problem.
this. There's no reason we don't deserve this. I mean, Hashem knows, and we do deserve it. But as a country, on a bureaucratic level, like this kind of thing should not be happening. It's a flaw. It's an error in the system.
Right. I don't think you mean bureaucratic. I think you mean
Technical,
systematic.
Whatever it is, something about government.
Yeah, like we
shouldn't be doing it this way.
We have some structural issues.
I also
inside.
want to make not exactly a vow, because I might have to take it back if it doesn't work out. But I want to throw out a possible. I want to say a statement. Okay, I want to say something.
Go on now.
I
You're in a safe
don't
space
want
here.
to vote for a party that doesn't hold a primary.
Okay.
I'm tired of us all being told that this is what it is and this is what we got, and you have to, like, we're going to go to a third election based on exactly the same stuff.
Right.
If you're not going to have a primary, I don't think I want to vote for you.
Okay, fine, but
I'm just saying a statement because it literally may be that not a single party holds a primary.
No,
or
a lot
changes
of
any
parties are
leadership.
going to hold. The big parties all hold primaries. The Likud holds a primary. But in any case, I get your point, but there's other structural issues. For example, we have a problem of, like, it's just dawned on me, we don't have a real separations of power between the executive and the legislative branches, and that's just weird. In any case, there's a few things here that need fixing, and let's wrap all of that together. And there's one, like if I had to give one answer, to like the way forward, it's Hanukkah.
Yeah,
Hanukkah.
I guess we need this Hanukkah big.
We need it. We need a Hanukkah. We need a real Hanukkah. Now Hanukkah is being undermined. Also, it's being undermined either by Christmas.
Well, not here in Israel. We're good.
Don't say that.
Although I get
that's
yes,
not
that's
true.
not
you
100% true.
Right.
You're right.
I'm saying that was one of the underminings. Another big undermining is the biggest one of them all, which is just apathy towards it. Like no biggie, no creation of great cultural things that make people bound to Hanukkah. Although I did drive in the street in Jerusalem recently, and they had the Chanukkiot up on the streets on the light post. That made me happy. But also the erosion of the Hanukkah idea from the cleansing of our land from foreign influences, the robust pushback against enemies and against people who would take our temple, etc. But it's being erased from that, and I talked about this in the last half, so let's not elaborate on it too much. But turning that into this like sissy holiday of
lights and donuts.
And
although I love me some lights and donuts. Don't misunderstand.
I wasn't going to say lights
totally
and donuts. I was going to say a holiday of acceptance and togetherness, and everybody likes
it's all a metaphor.
Yeah, it's all actually about the beautiful light, and we're all together, and blah blah blah. And
right, someone said that to me on Twitter the other day.
Yeah,
they're like,
I was
it's
talking
really
about that.
Oh, you talked about it.
Yeah,
yeah. The Hanukkah's about compassion, and I'm like,
and you were like, no, it's not.
No, I like compassion. I try to practice compassion on a daily, hourly, and to the minute basis.
Of course, you practice compassion. You're married
to
me.
I would. Yeah, that's true. But I would not say that Hanukkah. The opposite. I would be like, Hanukkah is when we like stick our spear in the ground and be like,
don't say spear. It's hammer. Okay, it's hammer time. That's what Hanukkah's about.
Can we put a little hammer in the show?
Yeah,
like MC?
It's hammer time. That's what Maccabee means. You know what I mean? That's what he was called. Yehuda was
but
called
I think
the hammer.
I don't think they only used
Maccabeus.
hammers. It wasn't like
no, but that was his
we
moniker.
Should bring the hammer.
The hammer, man.
That should be a symbol of Hanukkah. What's that?
Yeah, hammer time.
We got to figure that out.
Yo. All right, folks. Listen, we've been together with you now for an hour and a half, and we love it. We just love being with you. And for me and for Malkah, we're just so excited for Hanukkah because there's a light there. There's a light there, and I mean that like, you know what I mean. And let's light it up this year. There's many things. This morning I woke up slightly depressed, but like the light of Hanukkah is just It's pulsating through me. It's making me feel like there's going to be an amazing light, and we're going to get through all this stuff. We're going to get through all this stuff.
We're totally. We've been through so much worse, people.
But Hanukkah was about a fight.
Yishai, in Hanukkah, all the universities were also telling the Jews that anti-Semitism wasn't a big deal.
You bet. But I just want you to know, Malkah.
But we had a few people who went and they were like, ah! And they went nuts on those people.
That's right.
And then here we are today.
Baruch Hashem.
So it's not too late.
All right, folks. I want you to please write us an email if you can. Yishai@thelandofisrael.com. Malkah, just write to me. Yishai@thelandofisrael.com.
Yes.
Or check out Malkah at Malkah F. What are you on Twitter?
Malkah Fleisher.
Malkah Fleisher on Twitter. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And also, I love following Malkah. Retweet her all the time.
I retweet you too.
Thank you. Okay.
That's love in 2019. I tweet you.
You retweet me.
Retweet me.
Okay, so send us an email, and Malkah, come up with a hashtag for me. Come up with a hashtag. Hammer time.
Hashtag hammer time.
Hashtag hammer time. That's all I want to hear. Hashtag hammer time. Oh. Okay, you know what I mean. All right.
Can't touch this.
Can't touch this. All right, folks, you are listening to Yishai Fleisher Show on the Land of Israel Network, broadcasting from Judea. God is broadcasting an incredible message. We gotta lend him our ears. We gotta listen to the great message that's being broadcast out from the Land of Israel. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, because the light of Israel, the Torah of Israel, is coming out of the Land of Israel, and you are part of it wherever you are. Stay tuned, stay strong, stay connected. God bless you, and shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Benny Gantz.
Avigdor Lieberman.
Yair Lapid.
Will the people of Israel have a government soon? Will it be a unity government? Will it be a right-wing government?